Welcome to this third week of Lent where we have been learning how to listen, how to live compassionately with others. The last 2 weeks have been kind of theoretical, and I'm going to make a switch here to really begin inviting us into particular practices that can guide us in listening. Because the thing with listening is it's not just going to happen for us. This is something we have to train for. This is something we have to practice. So from here on out, the rest of the weeks, I'm going to be inviting us into several different kinds of practices. So far, during this study, I've invited you to practice 15 minutes a day of just stillness. So I hope you're doing that. If you haven't been doing it, don't beat yourself up. Just restart each day. Each day is a new day, a new opportunity to embrace these practices that can help us to listen and to live compassionately. So 15 minutes a day, just find a time of stillness. Then the other practice was to find a sit spot, some kind of sit spot outside. And you'll notice that I've now taken these studies outside, and I'm going to be doing this from the same location each time so that hopefully we can start seeing all of the changes that happen over the course of 6 weeks. The last practice I've invited you to participate in last week was to begin looking at how your biases might be controlling how you listen or how you engage in relationship with not just information, but relationships with people. How is it that you are being attached to your own biases? Some biases that might have a positive thing about them, but yet that attachment to the biases is what becomes harmful. So what have you discovered in that? What kind of biases have you seen in yourself over this last week? All of these practices so far have been practices in helping us to become aware of what's going on. The stillness is the slowing down so that we can become aware. The sit spot is so that we're being aware of what's going on in the natural world. And the biases is becoming aware of these things that are happening even without our control inside of us. And so we're going to continue with that same theme and talk about this idea of mindful communication. This word mindfulness really is just another word for awareness. So it's going to be these practices that help us enter into communication being fully aware. Before we begin, I'm going to invite you into this practice that I have learned from my own spiritual director. And it's a practice of breathing, and it's a practice of centering. So this is how it's going to work. I'm going to invite you to take 4 deep breaths. We're going to inhale through our nostrils and then exhale through our mouth. 4 deep breaths. And then I'm going to invite you to repeat a phrase. Now, as I say this phrase, if there's something about it that just doesn't quite feel right with you, feel free to just insert your own words that feels right and true to you. But I invite you into this practice of breathing and then a practice of centering as you repeat the words after me. So let's together take 4 deep breaths in through the nostril, out through the mouth. And I invite you to repeat these words after me. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. Amen. That practice, I hope you find useful for you to enter into conversations, especially maybe conversations that you know are going to be a little bit more challenging. Use that breathing, use that repetition of that phrase of be still and know that I am God, repeating down to be, to center yourself so that you can become aware and mindful of what's going on, both in you, in the other person, and in the context around you. Because here's the thing with communication. You don't have to go and engage in communication with someone, right? Sometimes engaging in communication can be a hurtful thing because that person that maybe you have to go communicate to you, they have harassed you in the past, they have hurt you, they have traumatized you, and you don't have to go into that. But centering yourself, becoming mindful and aware allows you the opportunity to make a wise decision on whether you are going to engage or whether you need to step back and just let go. But that's only a decision that can be made with a wise mind that you come to when you quiet yourself and center yourself. This next practice I'll invite you into is really more of a practice that you'll do after you have engaged in a conversation with someone. This is to help us then, perhaps it wasn't the best conversation, maybe it didn't go the way that you thought it was, you said some things that you didn't want to say, or you didn't say things that you really wanted to say or needed to say. But the reflection allows us to say, you know what, the conversation happened. It is what it is, and the next time I enter into conversation, perhaps I'm going to be more aware of what is going on. So the thing I'd like for you to reflect upon, that I invite you to reflect upon, is what values were expressed, both in your communication and the other person's communication. What values were expressed? Sometimes you may say things like, I need you to listen, but yet there's an underlying value underneath there, a value and a need for intimacy and connection, a value for respect. And perhaps you're hearing them say some things and maybe they said a particular word that triggers you in a way, a particular word that maybe you're now automatically associating them with this polarized camp or that polarized camp. So get beneath the words that were said and try to reflect upon what values were being expressed. And then you can start taking that kind of awareness as you practice it in the reflection time after the conversation. Then the idea is that as you reflect more and more, as you enter into the conversation, you begin recognizing what values are at play and not allowing the words or the biases to trap us into a conflict, but yet we start seeing the values expressed, the vulnerability of us and the other, that then we might be able to meet in a human and a compassionate way in that shared vulnerability. So after you've engaged in a conversation, begin reflecting on what values were expressed beneath the surface of the words. The third practice I invite you to engage with is one of attention and being intentional so that you can show up with your full attention and show up with presence. So there are particular things, and we all have them, that distract us. Pretty commonly held one is our phones, or if you've got a smartwatch, I do not have one, But those phones are distractions for us, right? How many conversations have we been in when either you or the other person has had their phone up and so they've been checking the notifications, or their smartwatch is just buzzing them and so they're constantly looking down, right? They're distractions. Those things keep us from being fully present with the other person. Now, there's other things that could be distractions for you as well. Maybe you're just hungry and your stomach is growling, and that hunger causes you to not fully be present with the other person because you start thinking about, what am I going to be cooking for dinner? There's other things that might be a distraction, perhaps just your own health. Perhaps you're stressed out, perhaps you're tired, perhaps you are behind on a project. All of these things can become distractions. And so the practice that I invite you into is to start being intentional about thinking, what are the things that are going to distract me? So when you know you're going to be entering into a conversation with someone, begin thinking through, what's distracting me? And is there anything that I can do about it? Is there any strategy that I could utilize so that that distraction can kind of be pushed to the side for the time being? You know, the easy one with the phone is just turn the notifications off, right? That's an easy one. Maybe not so easy is your hunger. But then again, perhaps if you get a snack real quick before you enter into the conversation. Perhaps it's just an acknowledgement when you enter into conversation with someone and being vulnerable and say, I have had a really hard week this week. I haven't gotten a full amount of sleep. I am behind on projects and I am distracted, but I am going to do my best to show up and be present with you. So be intentional about understanding what is distracting you and keeping you from showing up and being fully present. And then see if there are strategies that you can put in play to push those distractions to the side, or if you can't, be vulnerable and acknowledge them. Show up and be present with the other person.